So you're an executive producer for at the Center for Humane Technology. So I guess first off, like very top level, like what is, the mission? Why is it important? And then I guess at the end of that, how involved in the, social dilemma documentary were you, et cetera?
Oh, I was not there yet, not involved.
Not involved. Okay.
Although friends of the team,
Sure, sure,
and
sure.
and Deep Reckonings and Social Dilemma and my son were all born like kind of at the same time.
Oh, wow.
So,
Packed in.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
it was September 2020. I don't know if you remember. It was heat waves, California heat waves, fires, the sky was red, pandemic. It was like
Oh,
this
sure,
and
sure.
then like the Social Dilemma comes out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 So, but yeah, the Center for Humane Technology, broadly speaking, is working to, yeah, just maintain the integrity of human consciousness and attention from the onslaught of social media that is racing us to the bottom of our brain stems. And we operate in the realms of
Mm-hmm.
education, public education, and policy
Mm-hmm.
would be kind of like and so we have a we education wise we have a podcast which I lead, which is called Your Undivided Attention. We have a course for training technologists.
Mm-hmm.
um Trista, people on the team are constantly speaking and teaching. So we kind of have the education side of things, and then policy wise, um I'm wondering kind of like what I can
Well,
say
we'll get
publicly.
into
Just,
we'll get into the
yeah.
podcast, and so maybe just focus
Okay.
on maybe the one of the
Yeah.
policy stuff. So like how so the
Yeah.
course is super interesting, training technologists, the podcast in general, but then I guess policy. I mean, that's a huge, I guess you could say, topic of consideration nowadays with so much of like the influx of not just money in politics, but then also institutions trying to change
Hmm.
narratives, et cetera. So like maybe just quick liner about what you guys see as policy and how to drive change in that kind of regard.
I mean, I'll say more. Maybe I'll just say something about there's there's a window of opportunity, right? There are these moments, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
say,
Mm-hmm.
after the Social Dilemma came out. After the Social Dilemma came out, Tristan testified before Congress, not for his first time, but Lindsey Graham referenced the Social Dilemma.
Right.
Actually, it wasn't when. Actually, it was when. Sorry, it was actually. It was when Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey were
Ah.
testifying
Okay.
before
Okay.
Congress, and Lindsey Graham
Uh-huh.
was like, "Have you seen the Social Dilemma?" So there are these moments, right, when there's a window of opportunity for political change, and tech is this like wildly rare bipartisan issue when like nothing is bipartisan anymore. Tech
Yeah.
somehow still, even though they would have different approaches to the issue, it's an issue that is very bipartisan, right? And so the window of opportunity we're in right now is the post Francis
Yeah.
Haugen
Yeah.
window of opportunity. So for folks who don't know, Francis Haugen was at Facebook, and it was is a whistleblower. Facebook
Yep.
kind of had social media had its quote unquote big tobacco moment last fall, and we interviewed her on the show, and she's absolutely brilliant. And so we're kind of living in and she leaked a lot of really kind of extraordinary information about how much Facebook knows about the impact
Yeah.
it's having. So in that
Yep.
case, the mirror does not work, right? Because Facebook is hyper aware. It
Yep.
tracks the
Yep.
impact it's having. And yet, but this is when we also have to zoom out, and the mirror is not is, what's the saying? Sufficient, but not sufficient.
No.
Necessary, but not sufficient. Necessary,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
not
Necessary,
sufficient.
very much. Okay.
Because
Yeah.
if Facebook is still held accountable to short-term profit maximization, well, then we need to go a little bit upstream of the
Yeah.
company itself. Um, but yeah, so there's a window of opportunity, I guess I would say, still kind of in the afterglow of Frances Haugen's revelations.
Okay. And then so I mean, and this don't take this as too much of a push, but I do want to kind of maybe go a little higher level and like the STSE kind of things, because so
Oh
at
yeah.
least for me, like watching the documentary, I watched it the first time with my girlfriend, and we're nerds and et cetera, but love kind of these exposés and different kind of filmmaking, to kind of try and tell a story, and we really liked it. But then I really started thinking a little bit more about how they went about it, in that, like, well, I guess my critique of it was that they were kind of interviewing the same people that kind of who created the problem, and that how it can
Yep.
be fixed, rather than like
Yeah.
maybe going and there's a panoply of scholars, of researchers, of people who maybe could have had a more of a voice. And like, I just remember for one review that I had to look it up to do this. So these aren't my words, but a film that manipulates you with misinformation as it tries to warn you of manipulation by
Oh,
and misinformation. And it's like, eesh.
yikes.
So for
Yeah.
me, but since you weren't kind of really involved, and maybe you were just viewing it, but then also you work at kind of the Center for Humane Technology, I really liked the film overall in its message and what it was trying to do. But then maybe if we were kind of to critique it a little bit, and maybe if you could remake The Social Dilemma now, like, is there anything that you would say? Because I think, like you just said, there are
Yes.
these Overton windows that kind of
Yeah.
move and shift, et cetera. So maybe just from your point of view, like, we can just kind of talk a little bit about the
Yeah.
criticism and what we could do maybe nowadays
Yeah.
with a little bit more hindsight,
Yeah, totally. Yes. And I'm happy to, and even if I had worked on it, I would still welcome
You
critiques. And
seem like the
but yeah,
person
the
that
two
would.
I mean, the two kind of main, I guess, critique, like for me, it's fine if they interviewed the people who created the problem, but then the role
Mhm.
of those people should be to take responsibility for creating the problem, right?
Yeah, good point.
Reckonings, deep reckoning. So to me, the glaring omission, it's like, it's, the critique is like, oh, but it's all white guys who created the problem. It's like, yeah, because their role is to take responsibility for the problem they created. They just kind of skipped a step. It was like, I was there, I built it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
are you gonna say, is there gonna be a, and I fucked up? Like, is there gonna be
Right.
like, it's like they missed a step or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's the role. It's not, it's like, to me, it's not a problem if they have those people, if those people are doing the role that they're uniquely equipped to do, which is
Mm-hmm.
take some responsibility, which would have been so also like culturally therapeutic. I think it would have been really helpful. I think the critique, like, then it wouldn't, right? We wouldn't be critiquing them for having the creators of the problem if they had taken responsibility
Yeah,
for creating
sure.
it's like
Yeah.
that only them can do that.
Right, right,
So
right, right, right.
if we want to talk about solutions, then yeah, then there's like a whole nother cast of people. Yeah, and that's also a very common critique of the film that I also agree with. But I'm kind of two minds about. I'm no, I yeah, there could definitely have been more solution orientedness, for sure. I think yeah, this was much more like a diagnosis. So but that also that kind of goes more to the goal, like what is the goal of the film? What was the film
100%.
trying to achieve?
Yep.
And if the film was trying to expose the problem and kind of like rally people around, I think it did that very well.
Mm-hmm.
I get, yeah, the two things I would, so just leaving the solution oriented aside, I would say if your goal was to just expose the problem, then I would say have the people who created the problem take responsibility. And then I would say second, I don't think the bridge was built very effectively from the first half of the film to the second half of the film. The second half of the film really does focus on the economic context in which these companies exist. There's the line that Justin Rosenstein says that a tree is worth more dead than alive.
Oh, sure. Oof.
And that's part of
Oof.
the problem. People forget, like, people still, when they talk to us about the film or talk to Tristan about the film, like, the first thing they say is, like, oh, like, my kid is addicted. Or, like, oh, I really struggle. It's like, I think we got the memo. We got the memo about the first half of the film, kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
only. And
Yeah.
so I'm not sure what I maybe start with the second half, maybe start with the context, start with like, this is the economic context, or this is however far you want to go upstream. If you want to go out all the way up to the generator functions of existential risk, fine. If you want to go all the way up to rival risk dynamics, multipolar traps, arms races, I mean, we should go further upstream than capitalism anyway. But like, if you wherever you want to kind of locate the source, maybe that's the place to start. And then technology just becomes yet another manifestation of that. But at least we've
100%.
appropriately contextualized it in a way that people will remember. It starts all the way up there. So we can't only point the finger at tech companies. We need to point the finger at, sure, the shareholder value myth and all the way up.
Lots of mirrors.
And
Lots of
when you go
mirrors.
all the way up there, yeah, when you go all the way up there, you also get to just our human nature. I mean,
Yeah.
you get to like some other, so yeah, those
No,
are the two. If yeah.
I'm with you on that. And
Yeah.
honestly, like if we really take it into the context of like, okay, does it like instill some type of zeitgeist movement, or more people understanding what the problem is, et cetera? I think it did succeed in that. And I guess the only other film that we can talk about, and maybe this will be a short film review of some of these things, is Don't Look Up, because with the climate
Mm,
change, because I mean, it's so funny because when I watched it at first, I was like, this is, there's comedic elements, there's a different narrative. It really kind of changes the thing. But then everyone is so off on like, well, it's treating viewers like they're dumb, and it's like, well, but that's the whole, I mean, there's an element that they're trying to do. But I think as a film, like if you change or at least influence the zeitgeist to talk more about the issue, I think in a lot of different ways that is a success. And so I don't know if you have any connections with like Don't Look Up and that kind of like same
yeah.
thing. But that's the other film that I thought of in the sense of like
Yeah.
really, at the social dilemma level, if you will.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed. I had so many thoughts after I watched it and I've already kind of forgotten. So can you give me, and you can cut this out if you want. I'm sorry. I have
No,
a
no,
full-time
no.
job, two kids. My brain is full. Can you remind me a little bit of like how it resolves, how it ends?
No, I'm pretty sure that and again, like I'm dating myself for watching the movie, but I'm pretty sure that the asteroid like kills everybody, like at the end. So like, I mean, I can look up
And the
quickly.
mom takes off and forgets her son in the
Yeah.
wasteland. Yeah.
So I mean, it
And what
all ends
happens to
up
the sign?
badly.
What happens to Leonardo DiCaprio? What happens to the protagonist and Jennifer Lawrence? What happens to them?
Yeah, good question. Honestly, I thought that I'm reminded that I thought that they all went to like a house and were having like a dinner or something.
Oh, and
Maybe
they were
they
just
were just writing it
ritualizing it.
out. Yeah, yeah,
They
like this is
yeah,
happening. Like this is, and that's what I
our
remember.
Last Supper. They had their
Yeah.
Last Supper.
And the
Yeah, yeah.
reason why I'm
Uh,
bringing this up is recently, with all the heat waves and the climate action and all the rest of it, people are like taking news clips of actual news clips and then putting them with Don't
Totally,
Look
and
Up clips.
comparing them.
And I'm like,
Oh yeah,
oh
yeah.
man, this is hilarious. Like, are we in an
Yeah.
actual film ourselves? So I didn't know if you had
So
any
here,
thoughts, not
yeah.
to.
My general, and I don't know if this is so specific. My kind of a more general thought that I probably thought in reaction to Don't Look Up. When it comes to things that are prophesizing,
Mm,
um, we are not just talking about the future at a high enough level of influence. We're not just talking about the future, we are creating it.
oh, totally.
We are
100%.
co-creating it. And
Yep.
so when it comes to prophecies, I just especially, it's like take responsibility for your co-creation of reality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are
Mm-hmm.
you seeding? What are you
Mm-hmm.
seeding into the collective consciousness in terms of what we get to? I mean, we have always, throughout history, we have always co-evolved with the stories that we tell about ourselves and the future, whether fictional or non, right?
Yep.
And so I probably just thought, like, come on, give us something to co-evolve with here. Like, I get, and maybe they would say, yeah, but it's a funny mirror. We're supposed to look at it and laugh at
Mm-hmm.
ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's maybe also why I say, yeah, but the mirror is also a little see-through. We're also looking through it.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, someone who I would say takes responsibility for their co-creation of reality, I would say Kim Stanley Robinson.
Okay. Okay.
If you read Ministry for the Future,
I
he's a
did.
science fiction writer.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it
Yeah, and
actually. Yeah.
he does a really nice job of threat of like not like he fully um exposes the gravity of what is likely to happen, the darkness that we are going through and might go through, and also kind of like rolls out a red carpet. I mean, and that's also very deep reckonings, right? How might we use our
Mm-hmm.
synthetic selves to elicit our better angels? Like, what kind of carpet are you rolling out? And so maybe with Don't Look Up, there's some of it that it's like making fun of us can. I mean, I find value in making fun of ourselves for sure, and also, and towards what end, and in service of what, and like rolling out the red carpet in what direction. So
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm with you on some of this stuff because, to be quite honest, so right now I'm actually almost done with the first book of the Mars trilogy, so Red Mars, and it's
Oh,
super interesting, like how politics and socioeconomic status and the narratives and everything just comes in. I really liked Ministry of the Future, but then also I guess I maybe want to riff with you now a little bit on, you just mentioned kind of the narratives we tell ourselves. I mean, in science fiction has perennially been about like the dystopia realities that we're about to reckon with, et cetera, until a couple years ago with a little old book called from Ted Chiang, Arrival. And I really enjoyed Arrival, and like kind of more of a, maybe not utopic vision, but more of a kind of way out, if you will, or something that can
mm-hmm.
be to use, as something to go towards. And so I don't know if you're familiar with those, but like Arrival, one of my favorite, sci-fi movies of the last, say, 10 years. And because
Oh,
it doesn't go to this like whole dystopic reality that we're unfolding. It actually gives us, some memorable, like I would dare say optimistic, visions of
yeah.
humanity, et cetera. So if you haven't
Yeah.
checked that out, I would
Oh,
definitely,
I will. I will.
the
I will.
Arrival.
And I mean, I should also say, like, disaster porn, like has a role. Like,
Yeah,
it's
for
not
sure.
inherent. It's like disaster porn can be a gateway to action,
Sure.
So it's just, but it's
Sure.
just like under what circumstances, in what quantities, in what, it's like when in service, thumbs up, and that there's like a needle to be thread, because it can be in service and it can also just be totally devastating and depressing and make us want to just tune out.
Yeah, that's great.
So
That's great.
info hazard wise.